Hello, Uggies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today we're going to talk about AutoPatch. AutoPatch is something that was very popular in the 80s, 90s, and maybe a little bit into the 2000s. It is a method of connecting your handheld or mobile rig to a phone line. So that you can, do a variety of things. Most people used it to call emergency services, and I myself, on many occasions, driving around, picking up my kids and all that, would notice a minor accident and would call 911 and give them the information and then move on. And I did that countless times. In fact, there was a little tour that the Bark Jr. group, my daughter was in it, got to go tour the 911 center, and my daughter was the one selected to use the AutoPatch to send a 911 call and watch it come in and how it went through the system and so on. That is largely a thing of the past. Doing an AutoPatch years ago, which basically means just simply connecting your radio to a phone line, was very common when long distance rates were a thing. Long distance rates are no longer a thing. If you pick up the phone and call long distance, if you've got a cell phone, it doesn't cost you anything for the long distance call. So why patch to radio? But there was a time when long distance, and you figure this is before inflation, long distance calls were about 50 cents a minute, and now that would be about $5 a minute. And so people were eager to use ham radio to do that. And an AutoPatch would be set up where someone wanting to call would get hold of a ham in the local area. Often these had to be set up in advance. And then would make the call, and the operator on the other end used something called a patch, a phone patch, to connect the input and output of the radio to the phone lines, and he could monitor what was going on very easily. Now, like I said, it's gone out of style because of cell phones. Yes, it is a form of third-party traffic, and so you had to follow the third-party traffic rules. Back in the days of the Vietnam War, the Mars stations over there were pretty busy contacting stateside hams and then running AutoPatches to people's loved ones so that the soldier could talk to his mom, dad, kids, wife, whatever. And one of the people who was deeply involved in this was one of the most famous hams of the time, and that was Senator Barry Goldwater of Arizona. He made a lot of these patches. So a lot was done. You will notice, let me get this. You will notice that almost every handheld sold today has a keypad on it. Okay, now if you press down on this keypad, it usually does menu functions, right? But if you're holding the transmit button, push to talk down, and you press on one of these, you get the telephone code. It was called dual tone MultiFrequency, or DTMF, that it corresponds to that number. So if this were connected to a telephone, it would actually dial a number. The first FM radios, handheld radios, did not have the keypad on it. And the manufacturers caught on quickly that hams wanted it so that they could make phone calls through their local repeater, telling their wife they're going to be home late, whatever. And that's why the keyboard is here. Now, of course, we don't use it much for that, but it still works the same way. If you had another handheld, you hold down the transmit on this, punch in a tone, and it will show up as a telephone tone on the receiving end. Now, granted, it's out of style. Boy, you used to have to jump through hoops to connect your radio to your phone line. It would take a separate auto patch, which could be, well, it wasn't an auto patch, it was just a patch. And it was all manually controlled and everything. Now, there's one little problem with this that I should note. A telephone, let's see if anybody remembers when telephones look like this. Okay, a telephone is a full duplex device. You can talk on it, you can receive on it at the same time. Okay, so you can interrupt each other and so on. Whereas radio could go out if you push the push to talk, okay, or in if you let up on the push to talk. This is full duplex. This is technically termed simplex because you can only go one way at a time. So the guy running the patch had to be there to press the push to talk key. You know, if his aunt called him here, okay, to talk to her sister in New York, and you had this set up with some other ham so that you were talking to each other at the time, both of you had to do this. You do that push to talk so that when the people on the phone were talking, you'd have to have the push to talk so that it would go out through the radio. Now, is there any place for auto patch today? The answer is, I guess, a qualified yes. It's not used nearly so often. And if it's a simple thing like calling 911, often what a ham will do is talk to another ham who's at a fixed location or is, say, in cell range, who can call 911 and then just verbally relay between the two. If you wanted to do an auto patch today, it's actually quite simple to do. Say, for example, you are way high in the mountains and you've come across a little four-wheeler ATV that has, you know, flipped over, gone over the side, and so on. And you have amateur radio connectivity, and you can get to a repeater, but there's no phone service up there. You can have a ham call 911 for you. But if there needs to be any back and forth like this, what you do is you take your handheld and put it in speaker mode. Okay, so you know, when you're calling somebody, there's a little speakerphone image. Put it in speakerphone. Okay, put it. Well, let me do it on the blackboard here. Okay, here's your phone. Here's your radio. If you put the phone in speakerphone mode, okay, right next to the radio's got a microphone, okay, and you can, when you press send on this thing, the speakerphone will be loud enough that the microphone will pick it up, and you've now got communications. Oh, I've got that backwards, I'm sorry. Start that over again. You put the speakerphone near the radio. Okay, you dial 911 or whoever, somebody's wife, whatever, says, I'll be late because I ran out of gas. Okay, and you then from the remote place where a person has a handheld but no phone connectivity, that will come over the speaker here and go directly into the microphone here, and they'll hear it. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to now move it the other way, remembering this is full duplex, goes both ways at once. This is simplex, it only goes one way at a time. Okay, the person here, when they're talking, you push the push to talk here, and then it will go this way from the phone into the speaker. Well, now that creates a little problem. How can one of those people interrupt the other? The answer is they can't. Okay? So what people have to do, and people do not do this well unless they are experienced to going through patches. When they are done saying something, they have to say over. And when this person says over and it's going into here, and then this person is going to talk, you push the push to talk button until this person says over, and then you let up, okay? And it all comes down to that. The push to talk button changes the direction of the signal from here going out here. Letting it up allows the signal to come in here and go out here, okay? So you can do an auto patch today. No cables, nothing connecting each other. You've got all the equipment that you need to do this right in your pocket. You've got your handheld, you've got your phone, okay? So you can do things like that. So you're talking to somebody and they're up on a hike and says, we took the wrong trail, we lost an hour, can you tell my wife? Well, you could just call his wife and tell him, but if she had questions, why not set up an auto patch? And then that way, well, it's not an auto patch, I keep using the wrong word, auto patch. Auto patch, which rarely exists anymore, is when all that is done through the repeater. It's the repeater that's connected to the phone line. That's hardly ever the case anymore, okay? So it used to be I could pick this up, dial an access code that would bring up the auto patch that was unique to every auto patch and usually held as an open secret in the club as to what that particular number was. And then dial the actual number, and you could just do your talking here. Nowadays, the person on one end is doing the talking, but somebody's doing a manual patch here where they have to push the push to talk button here, okay? So it does work. It does work. You can do it. The person who brought this question up was Isaiah Stevenson, who is working on his technician license and ran across the term auto patch in the book. There are probably a few lingering holdouts in the United States or Europe or wherever ham radio is popular, where people can still make an auto patch. But now it's just so easy to do with the cell phone. When I was first a ham, I contacted somebody who wanted me to do an auto patch to them. So I did it with the same way, except it was an HF radio. So I had an HF microphone here. And instead of this, I had a genuine, old-fashioned, plain old telephone service speakerphone. And it worked fine. I didn't have to make any connections with the telephone. So the auto patch has a pretty glorious history, but it is something of the past. It can still be done with equipment that you have in your pocket. A handheld and the speakerphone capability of your telephone. No Bluetooth needed, no Wi-Fi, nothing, just audio. Okay? So there you have it. If you would like to help support this channel, you may do so by going to dcasler.com/support and picking a way that you find most helpful. You can get to Patreon through there also. Please also subscribe and click the bell and click like. Don't forget to comment. Until we next meet, 73.